I go through that, and that's honestly what takes the majority of the time in my listing appointment, is that disclosure statement. Because I honestly help those sellers in understanding each of those questions. I mean, how many people that, there's, in the seller property questionnaire, there's one question which I call the come sue me question. And it's on that first page. I don't know if anybody has one around, but it basically says, what remodeling, modifications, repairs have you ever done in your life? So that's what I call the come sue me question. I explain to my sellers that what I want them to do is write see addendum, and then I send them something. And what I send them is, it's a word thing, a Word document. And it just explains, the question, and I have them fill in the answers. But at the end, I always make sure my seller said, over the years we've done so many things to this home, and we've tried to remember everything, but there certainly are things that we could have forgotten. And that way, at least you've given them what I call the out clause. Because truthfully, nobody remembers everything. The other thing is when you talk about permits. I mean, how many people realize that when you change a water heater, you need to get a permit? Not many people realize that in my area. None. So, again, when you're going through that, and what I always tell my sellers, when the buyer gets this document, if the agent has done their job, it's right after they've bought the house. And that's why you need to do it at the listing appointment. When the buyer gets that and they get it right away, they're still excited about the house. They're not nitpicking it apart. So I think it's number one important to get it before the home inspection, because if you give it to them after the home inspection and there's something in there they wish they'd had the inspector check, you're talking about an extension of contingencies. Number two, I always try to tell my sellers what costs you $50 today to fix. If you wait till after the close of escrow and the buyer finds it, they're going to say it costs $500. So be smart. Let's go through this list and let's be honest. The other thing I usually recommend, I don't know how you guys feel about it. I don't usually recommend home inspections before. But one thing I do recommend is termite inspections before, because that is what I call a deep pocket item for the seller. I mean, everything else can be pretty much negotiated out. But, in my area, the seller usually pays for Section 1. So I want my sellers to know up front how much money that's going to be. The other conversation you need to have with your sellers is how long they've had the loan. You don't want surprises like prepays or something that you just don't know about. You really need to get into some tough questions with your sellers so that you can advise them and help them the most. And don't be afraid to ask those questions, because you have to get those answers in order to represent them.